Are you choking? Somebody call 911.
I asked him if he could breathe, and he shook his head no.
Math is one of 11-year-old Griffin Starcher's favorite subjects.
16. Can you show me how you learned long division?
And Mrs. Fiora is one of his favorite teachers.
A little more advanced in 5th grade.
He liked her class so much, he wrote this note at the end of 3rd grade.
She did math, which was a fun thing to do with her, and I liked her reading group.
The next year, Griffin was in her classroom at King Community Learning Center in Akron after school.
One day, he was complaining that his throat was kind of scratchy and a little sore, so I just gave him a mint.
I was sitting at that computer right there, and then it just slipped right down my throat, and then I stopped breathing.
I asked him if he could breathe, and he shook his head no, and he was still holding his neck. So I walked over to him and just started doing the Heimlich maneuver.
The first time, nothing happened.
Just in shock, and at the time it was happening, I thought I was gonna die.
I asked him if he could breathe, and he shook his head no. So I started again, and another quick burst, and that candy flew out of his mouth and hit the floor.
They were both shocked at what happened.
I was relieved that I was safe and I wasn't injured or anything.
It's pretty incredible. It's not something that I ever thought I would do.
Mrs. Fiora thinks she learned the Heimlich in high school.
I think about my job as an educator. I think of, teaching them math and reading and science and social studies. I don't ever really, it's not in the forefront of my mind to think that someday I'm going to actually have to save a life.
Most of us are just like Becky Fiora. We don't expect to have to save a life, but if that was you, would you know what to do?
Are you choking? Somebody call 911.
Akron Fire and EMS showed us how to do it.
You'll notice the patient is doing the international sign of choking. Arms around the neck. His face will be turning blue. He's moving no air at all.
For control, step between the legs of the person who is choking.
I'm making a fist with my left hand. With my right hand, I'll come behind him, grab that fist, and I will force air out of his airway. You're providing an artificial punch to their belly. You're trying to expel that out of their airway.
Keep making the motion until the person can breathe again. You can do this for anyone, 1-year-old and above. But for infants, there's another Heimlich maneuver. First, call 911.
You'll flip them over onto your left hand and have them head a little bit lower than the rest of their body, and you'll do 5 forceful blows with the heel of your hand. And you want to expel the object. You want the first one to work. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Flip them over onto your other arm. Midline, nip between the nipples, 5 chest compressions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you see something, get it out. If not, you don't stick your adult-sized fingers in the infant's airway.
Keep the sequence going until the object comes out, and don't be afraid of hurting the baby.
Can you cause some injury? Can you break a bone? Can you crack a rib? Perhaps, but in the end run, the child will be breathing, which is what we want as a result.
There's a word for when there's more than one of something.
You only get that result if you know what to do when the moment comes, and like in the case of Mrs. Fiora and Griffin, it could be when you least expect.
So something as simple as that piece of candy became life-threatening. I would encourage anybody to brush up on those life-saving techniques, because you never know. You might need it today, tomorrow, next week, anytime.